Derek, was yours working?
Yes, we're logged in in the conference room.
So everyone had trouble with their link working, and I just got it sent out to everyone. I'm hoping this link works. Because I wasn't allowed to send out the link.
Are you controlled as the organizer and the panelists? Is it?
Yeah, but I wasn't the one who sent out the link.
Who sent it out?
So we're actually live recording, but it was someone in our department.
Okay.
Yeah, not in the planning department, but it was someone with the city that had sent it, and it just went fairly wrong. So
hold on, there's 2 attendees.
Yeah, we have another attendee right now. I don't know. One is a phone call in listener. We're waiting on the hearing examiner, and Sherry Green and Matt Weber and Evan Mann.
Yeah, and then the attendees can, if we can grant them if they want to speak. Is the hearing examiner just having trouble?
Yeah, everyone's having trouble right now. It kind of turned into a disaster. We kind of need to be able to make our own links. So,
is it because it's sent out as a webinar rather than a regular Zoom link?
I don't even know what had happened. I have no idea. I was not in any control of it. I had no control. So I don't know what happened, but yeah. Anyways, good afternoon to the people that are attending. Let me make sure everyone all right, let me see. Promote to panelist.
Is that our hearing examiner?
Yes, Mark is our hearing examiner.
Okay.
Anyone else who is supposed to be in this meeting, if you could please comment and let us know that if it's Sherry Green or if it's Matt Weber. I apologize for this inconvenience. Again, our planning department could not make this webinar. So this sadly was out of our control. So we apologize. Hi, Mark.
There we go. Hi. Good afternoon.
Let me see. Let me see. Some people are saying they still can't get in. Hopefully that works.
There's a
hi Daedra, if you had made comments during the comment period, we do not currently allow people to just chime in whenever they want. They actually have to wait their turn. I'm pretty sure I do remember your name from the comments if I'm correct of the site. We actually ask that you patiently wait for Mark to do the hearing. This is our first time doing our hearing with Mark, but I know that he would probably also like for the hearing to go as he would proceed. So I would probably wait to ask him when he would prefer for those comments to come in. Thank you.
So Sarah, are we otherwise ready? Do you have all the people you anticipate today?
We're actually waiting on at least one other person. That would be Evan Mann with AHBL. He should be here any moment. He's trying to get the Zoom link to work. And again, Mark, I apologize and I appreciate your patience.
Sure.
This is an unexpected error that we couldn't have foreseen in our department. So
no worries. So that's Evan?
Evan Mann, yeah, he's attempting and he's not able to get in.
Okay. So while we're waiting for Mr. Mann, do you have any other representatives for AHBL, or is it simply him?
It may be Sherry Green and Matt Weber, but it most likely will just be Evan Mann with the background of Sherry Green in the same Zoom link with him.
Okay. And then for the city, anyone other than you expected to testify?
No, it should just be me today.
Okay. And so no other consultants or experts expected today then?
Correct. Everything that experts had said would be in that staff report.
Okay, great. Well, let's get a little bit out of the way while we're waiting for Mr. Mann. So can we get on record at this time?
Yes, I would love that.
Great. That's so we'll go on record. Good afternoon, Mark Scheipmeyer. I'm the somewhat newly minted hearing examiner for the city of Yelm. And in fact, this is my first public hearing for the city. Although it's my first matter for the city as hearing examiner, I've served as hearing examiner for a number of jurisdictions for now nearly 30 years. So for those of you who are concerned that I may be fresh to this, yes, I am new to Yelm, but not new to such matters and subdivisions. The purposes of today's hearing is to conduct or to provide the opportunity for public comment into a proposed subdivision referred to as the Crystal Springs subdivision located at 714 Crystal Springs Road, Southeast in Yelm. It bears the city's number 2021-0054. In advance of today's hearing, I have received the staff report authored by Ms. Williams, who is present today. I have reviewed that staff report in its entirety, and I'm otherwise familiar with the application. The staff report contains not just the report, but a series of exhibits, all of which are identified on the city's website. And I have reviewed all of those attachments, as well as the staff report, including all of the public comment that has been received in advance of today's hearing. So while I'll certainly be mindful of any procedures that the city may have historically relied upon, I do have a fairly set process for public hearings of this nature. It sort of has three components. It begins with a presentation by city staff, basically outlining to whatever extent the staff wishes to the report that it's prepared in advance of today's hearing, and confirming what its recommendations are for this project. Once the city has made that presentation, then the hearing turns to the applicant to respond to the city's presentation, to add or subtract from what the city has proposed, and to express any opposition it may have to proposed conditions or anything else it may want to respond to. Once those two pieces of the hearing have been completed, then the hearing opens to public comment. And so in these remote hearings, there's invariably a little bit of awkwardness in transitioning to that. In an in-person hearing, we would have a list of attendees and those who wish to be heard through a sign-up sheet typically. And so it's easy to determine those who might like to be heard. In a remote hearing, it's a little bit more difficult, not terribly so, but it does require some coordination between the participants and the staff and me to make certain that those who wish to be heard are given that opportunity, and also to figure out a timing or an order to those presentations. So at such time as we reach the public hearing portion and we determine whether there are individuals who wish to be heard, and I assume there are, then we'll take care of the business of figuring out an order for those presentations. When that portion of the hearing arrives, there are a few simple matters to address. First of all, there's the question of length of testimony. On unusually large projects, I almost always impose some length of testimony just for the courtesy of all participants, so that testimony moves along at something of a regular pace. When there are fewer participants, then I'm less inclined to impose any time limits. And I do not anticipate enough participants today that I feel an obligation to impose any kind of time limit. So if you wish to be heard, I'm not keeping a watch on your testimony, but I'll just remind you that at a certain point, it may lose its importance if you're going off track. So again, if you wish to be heard, don't worry about a 3-minute or a 5-minute or even a 10-minute limit. It's going to be what you're comfortable with, recognizing that it stay on topic. The only other useful suggestions I have with respect to public testimony are to remember that this is not a political process. This is not showing up in front of the city council and trying to persuade members of the council one direction or another. In that sense, the number of people who are supportive of a project or who are in opposition to a project can oftentimes be important for those council members. They pay close attention to the degree to which an application might be supported or not supported by public opinion. Contrast to that, to my hearing, I have no interest in whether a project is popular or unpopular. Its popularity has no weight on my decision making. And so for that reason, when you testify, keep in mind that what I'm doing is engaging in a fact-finding process. I'm not interested in your opinion so much as your factual testimony. And so, for example, testifying something to the effect of, Mr. Hearing Examiner, I'm opposed to this project and so are my neighbors, and then ending your testimony isn't going to do me much good. It won't really have explained why there may be factual reasons for that position. And the fact that others may feel like you doesn't really impact my decision making either. Compare that to testimony that, Mr. Hearing Examiner, I am opposed to this project for the following 5 reasons. And those reasons are, and those 5 reasons then become very important to me as I go through my decision-making process and analyze the testimony relative to the city's subdivision standards. So I'll just invite you to keep that in mind, that if you wish to be heard on this project, you will do yourself a favor or your cause a favor if you are as factual in your presentation as you can be. Again, because what I'm doing is gathering facts, ultimately to make a fact-finding decision. So again, that will be at the 3rd phase of this hearing today. You will not be subject to cross-examination if you wish to testify. You may be stopped by me, interrupted by me. I try not to do that, but I do it only if it's I think I can get value for having done so. In other words, if I'm not following your point very well, and I'd like you to clarify something, I may stop you to ask you to clarify so that I can better understand the position that you're taking or the point that you're wanting to make. If I do that, it's not because I'm trying to throw you off your track or to discomfort you in some way, but it's merely intended to improve upon the information that you're presenting me. So if by chance I stop you in your testimony, it's because I'm trying to increase the value of that testimony, not because I'm trying to interfere with it in any way. So those are the basic rules for today's hearing. And so we may encounter a few additional matters as we go along. Again, this is a learning process for all of us today. It being the first such hearing with me as the hearing examiner. We'll certainly be mindful and flexible as we proceed, making sure that when it's all said and done, that what's happened is that everybody's had a fair opportunity to be heard. So with that starting, we'll get underway with our testimony. And so that would begin with the city's presentation, and all testimony today will be under oath. And so that includes both the city and the applicant as well as the public. So Ms. Williams, I'd ask, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry, prior to beginning, point of order, there are public members who are not able to get into the hearing. And I'll tell you, we had a heck of a time. I'm actually the applicant, Evan Mann with Soundbuilt Homes, Copper Ridge LLC. And it was a bit of a trial just to get on myself. So I see Deidre Smith as an attendee. Is she part of the public? Is that?
Correct.
So I imagine at some point you will unmute her or allow her for comment. Is that how that works? I just want to make sure, because right now I'm seeing that public, and I know a couple other folks who are related to the project aren't able to get on as well. So I was able to do it, but it was not, it certainly was not fluid. I think, Sarah, maybe, I don't know who's setting these appointments up for you, but I think you need to set it up so that anyone with a link can access, not anyone with an account. And I think that it's requiring people to go set up accounts that maybe they don't have.
Mr. Mann's points are well taken. I found myself having to go to my account in order to link to the hearing, which I've not had to do before. And so we'll need, I'll ask the city to streamline its process in the future. But as today, Mr. Mann makes a significant point that public hearings aren't really public hearings if people are being denied access. And so at some point, we're going to have to stop and take stock as to whether it appears that there has been a full opportunity for that presentation by members of the public. And if it appears that that has not happened, then I'm going to determine how to deal with that. That may be by reconvening the hearing at a point, or it may be extending an opportunity for written comment, or it may be some other means by which the hearing remains open in the event there appears to be the likely result that there are people who have expressed a wish to be heard and have not been able to. So there is no good way of knowing in it as we proceed whether we will encounter that or not, and we'll simply take a wait and see approach. If perhaps city staff is receiving phone contact or other communications or emails expressing frustrations among members of the public that they remain unable to gain good contact, then I'll ask that be brought to my attention so that I can decide how best to provide that opportunity. Mr. Mann inadvertently addressed one thing that I had meant to mention in my opening, which is that I will expect the staff as host of this hearing to mute all participants except those that I wish to be hearing from, which would be the city staff and the applicant, and any particular consultants or experts testifying as part of that process. All others will remain muted until they're being asked to testify, in which time they will be unmuted. And that way we'll simply provide an assurance that I don't lose control of the hearing by multiple participants at one time. And of a somewhat like nature, I noticed that the chat opportunity has been engaged. I want to warn people that chat is not an opportunity to testify. It is an opportunity to express a concern about a procedural matter. And so you may use it to alert staff to some procedural question about the hearing, but it is not an opportunity to express opinions about the project itself or to offer your testimony in the form of a chat. So please do not do so. And again, if I'll ask you to simply honor that fact. If you want to be heard, you do need to be sworn under oath, and you do have to do so in the standard format. Chat is not an acceptable alternative to that format, nor do I want anybody engaging in a back and forth conversation on chat, as I have experienced in the past, and it's not an appropriate process for the public or for the official record. So with those additional comments, Ms. Williams, I swore you under oath and I was about to have you testify, but let's stop for a moment and just see if we have a better sense procedurally where we are right now. What do you believe to be the status of those who wish to be involved?
I do believe that there are others that do wish to be involved. What I will be doing and what I had just done is I sent out a mass email to other people who I knew could be possibly interested in this hearing. We have been getting phone calls and we have been getting notices. It seems like that people are interested. As the city, I think it would probably be wise to have these people be heard. At least we do have a lot of comments in our proposal today. that we would like to state. Every single comment that was mentioned, we have brought. But I do think for the community, it's important for their voices to be heard.
So let me inquire further. If will this hearing be on your website?
Yes, this will be on YouTube. This will be uploaded.
Okay, so if we proceed with as much presentation as we can, your presentation, the applicant's presentation, as much of the public presentation as is possible, we then post the hearing on the city site, allowing for others who may have been unable to participate to view that, and then allow them an opportunity to further respond. Is that a formula that the city might feel comfortable with?
I would feel comfortable with that, and allowing further comment period. I would be comfortable with that, as long as you would be able to take those comments later on and put it into your decision.
Okay, so I will finalize that process as we go along, determining exactly where we are, tailoring it to the circumstances as we find them as this hearing progresses. So without question, I'm going to impose some kind of an add-on to this hearing to make absolute certain that all those who wish to be heard have been given some opportunity, and the opportunity to hear the testimony of others as part of what they may want to say. So by providing this, today's hearing is an available video so that those who did not have an opportunity to participate can see what was said and can respond not only to what they were going to say on their own, but also to what was testified today. We'll provide that fuller opportunity and make more certain that procedural due process has been invoked. Because again, when it's all said and done, the single most important thing is that everyone who has an interest in this application has the same opportunity to be heard as anyone else. So with that in mind, and we're off to a bit of a sluggish start for our hearing, but let's get underway then with testimony. I swore Ms. Williams a few minutes ago. So Ms. Williams, you're under oath. Go ahead with your presentation.
All right, one more time, another point of order. This is Evan. So I understand the desire to keep the record open and allow for additional comment, but before we agree to that on our side as the applicant,
Mr. Mann, it's not a question of whether you agree or not. It's not your hearing, it's my hearing, and so I'll determine the procedural processes that we'll undertake to ensure that I have a full hearing. So I'll allow you an opportunity for further comment, but it is not your decision to make, it's mine. And I'll decide what I feel is important to make certain I've heard from everybody. I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to make clear who controls this hearing. It's me. I'll decide what takes place.
Okay. Totally understand.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Thank you. This proposal is Sherry Green at AHBL proposes to subdivide one parcel equaling 4.89 acres into 30 residential lots for single family dwellings at 714 Crystal Springs Road Southeast. This property is currently zoned moderate density residential, which is our 6th zone in the city, which allows up to 6 dwelling units per gross acre of land. This property is surrounded by open space, industrial, and moderate density zoning. This property is also generally flat.
You're breaking up a little bit.
I apologize. This property is generally flat with less than 5% slopes. Our notice of application was mailed to state and local agencies and property owners within 300 feet of the site on October 20th, 2021, and published in the Nisqually Valley News in the legal notice section on October 28th, 2021. We had received multiple comments regarding this development. Some were stating from 2 property owners in the neighborhood west of the site. The first comment stated concerns over traffic, loss of wildlife and vegetation, trash, noise, and congestion that the proposed development would create. This comment expresses concern over the new development using Woodland Court Southeast, which is currently a cul-de-sac, to access the new homes as children currently use this area to play. Comments from the second property owner concern privacy, as this home is adjacent to 3 proposed lots. They requested tall trees or landscaping in the backyards of the new lots to maintain privacy and replace the pine trees that are currently on the lot. The owner also expressed concerns over the increased traffic from the development and the potential danger to kids playing in the street in the neighborhood to the west. Notice of public hearing was sent out on the city website and mailed to property owners within 300 feet of the site and mailed to recipients of notice of application on or before February 25th, 2022. Notice of public.
I'm sorry, Ms. Williams, just on the issue of public comment. You had provided me earlier written comment. I take it you've not received any additional written comment in the last few days.
I actually am about to get to that.
Okay, all right, thanks. I'll let you get to it when you feel best.
Notice of public hearing was published in the Nisqually Valley News legal section on Thursday, February 24th, 2022. 2 comments were received during this time. A comment was received regarding safety concerns over children that play in the streets and possible dog attacks because of increased density. And more comments were received regarding traffic safety concerns and landscaping. Those were the only 2 comments that were received for the notice of public hearing.
And so those were part of my packet. Subsequent to you preparing the packet, I take it you did not receive any additional written comment.
These are actually new comments that were received after the packet. These are 2 additional ones that were regarding almost the same concerns that we had heard previously.
Well, they are in, I believe those to be included in the materials I received, correct?
One was actually received, the last one, the latter one, the traffic concerns and landscaping was actually received today, just a few hours prior.
Okay.
And then the comment regarding the possible dog attacks was received last week.
I see. So let's identify then those I have not received. So let's make certain that they are added to the exhibits. So we currently have 18 exhibits. So we'll make exhibit 19 the first of those 2 comments. And so how would you describe that comment by person and date?
Perfect. So the man's name, I'm not sure if he told me his name. I can't recall. It was over the phone. That was, I want to be clear.
Oh,
I
so
think,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is not a written exhibit. No. This is just a phone conversation.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So it will not be an exhibit then. Is the other one in written form?
Yes, this was a comment that we had received today over email. This was specifically from the Yelm Community, I think it was the Yelm Community Center. Let me get the exact information for you. One moment, please. So she was a representative for the Yelm Community Services, which is an adjacent property owner to the south at 624 Crystal Springs Road Northwest. And she had comments regarding traffic safety concerns and landscaping. Her name was Cindy Cecile.
Okay, and that's an email?
Correct.
Okay, and the last name is spelled how?
Cecil.
Okay, great. So we'll make Ms. Cecile's email to you of today as exhibit 19.
Perfect.
And if you can make certain that I receive a copy, as well as any others that new exhibits that may come to light today.
Of course. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks. Go ahead.
The next step I will get into will be our concurrency. Concurrency describes the situation in which water, sewer, and or transportation facilities are available when the impacts of development occur. First one we'll go over is water. To meet the water requirement, connection to Yelm's water system is required. As of today, water rights are not guaranteed until building permit issuance. We are approving preliminary subdivisions on the understanding that water rights are imminent. As of October 2021, the city of Yelm had 147 water connections available for new development, which could provide for 2 to 3 years worth of growth. This could change as the city of Yelm is expecting water rates sometime in spring 2022 from the Department of Ecology. The comment period for these water rights ended March 5th with no comments. We still do not have that permit in hand and are waiting for that permit. Until we get it in hand, we cannot process any, we cannot assure, I guess, any water rights until building permit issuance. Sewer concurrency would be the project is required to connect to that step system that we have here in the city. Transportation concurrency. To meet concurrency requirements, intersections cannot drop below the accepted levels of service. The applicant submitted a traffic assessment which projected the development will generate 30 new PM peak hour trips. The majority of traffic is expected to travel to and from the south with access and connection to Yelm Avenue. Frontage improvements are required along Crystal Springs Road Southeast, and traffic facility charges are due at the time of building permit issuance. Fire and school concurrency is met with fire impact fees and school impact fees. Next, I will move on to the environmental area. All of Yelm is considered as a critical aquifer recharge area in compliance with federal, state, and county water source protection regulations, and with the city's adopted stormwater regulations are required to protect the aquifer. Comments were received from the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency, ORCA, stating that an asbestos survey is required before demolition of any existing structures on the property. Comments were also received from the Department of Ecology stating standard regulations regarding hazardous waste and toxic reduction, solid waste management, and toxic cleanup, water quality. They would like to see this be met, but that is on the applicant to meet that. Comments were received from a property owner who had commented in the notice of application period expressing the same concerns over traffic, the loss of vegetation and wildlife, and pedestrian safety. Comments were also received again from another nearby property owner with similar concerns over mice, rabbits, birds, and other wildlife that may inhabit the property. They also expressed concern over the potential removal of large trees and increased traffic and noise pollution. These comments will be addressed further within our staff report. More on the environmental. A stormwater plan meeting the most recent 2019 edition of the Stormwater Management Manual for Western Washington will be required at civil plan submission. In 2014, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service listed the Mazama pocket gopher as a threatened species. When a development occurs on the property suspected to be occupied by the Mazama pocket gopher, the Public Services Department requires the applicant to prepare a critical areas report as part of the application. A gopher reconnaissance was completed by EnviroVector. This report found no indications of the Mazama pocket gopher. Public comment expressed concern over potential endangered and threatened birds on the property. The applicant had a threatened and endangered bird survey report performed on the property in December of 2021 by EnviroVector, which used a list generated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, which are federally listed in the region. No federally listed bird species were found at the site or near the vicinity. No critical areas of these bird species exist on the property or near the property. The determination was that it's extremely unlikely for federally listed bird species to inhabit this property. Next, I will go over our design standards. The applicant has shown they will meet all design standards for fire protection, stormwater, lot size, setbacks, and transportation. Due to the panhandle of this site being only 40 feet wide, a modified version of a local access residential street will be acceptable through the panhandle. Transportation requirements do ask every subdivision with 25 or more housing units provide more than one vehicular access from an arterial or collector street. Access from the east is not favorable as this property is currently developed as Yelm Public Services and is not identified as a future street connection. This development shows access on Crystal Springs Road Southeast and Woodland Court Southeast, which was designed as a future street connection. City staff recommends approval with several mitigating conditions. And that would be our staff report here for the city.
Thank you. A few questions, not too terribly long list. With respect to stormwater, you do have a stormwater plan, and it envisions two stormwater detention facilities. I think they call them tracks A and B. I don't see them on the plat map. Do you know, have they been incorporated into the final design? And if so, where might those be located?
Everything that we had provided to you is what was provided to us through the city. So I think that may be more of an Evan Mann HBL question.
Okay, I'll come back to that.
Thank you.
Then with respect to roads, I'm a little unclear on which of the roads is proposed as a private road as opposed to the public, those dedicated to the public. So the plat map identifies 3 roads and a little spur road. So there's roads, road C, which comes into the development, road B, which runs south and north through the development, and then a road A that again runs east and west and connects to Wildwood Court. Are all of those or just some of those intended to be private? And if so, which one is intended as a private road?
Only one will be private, and that would be the one to the south. I think that you had mentioned that was road C. I would have to get the map out in front of me, but that would be private. And that's only due to the fact that that panhandle is only 40 feet wide. We require that a public road be 58 feet wide for that row.
Okay, so that would be the one connecting with Crystal Springs Road, Crystal Springs Street. Correct. That's the one you're envisioning as private. And any particular concerns with having that as a private roadway, because it runs to a hammerhead intersection with Road B, suggesting or envisioning perhaps that it was to continue on further east at some point. It's not clear if that was envisioned or not, but I'm just wondering, as a private road, are there any limits on having it as potential extension into adjoining properties to the east, or any thoughts about that?
Potential expansion to the east is probably going to be unfavorable due to the fact that to the east is the Yelm Public Services Department. So that road is probably more or less just going to be going into to serve that development.
Okay, so with respect to roads A and B, then is it envisioned that road A is designed for the possibility of further extension should there be development to the east of this project? Is that how it's envisioned, or is it at least allow for the possibility of further expansion of the public road to the east?
I don't think that that would be something that we would be looking into right now. As at the time, I know behind there to the east is more industrial zoned. So usually with that industrial, we do ask for a dense landscape barrier if someone were to build along that east area. So I'm not sure that a continuing road would be favorable for the city, as we would require that to fully connect through.
So let me try all that in a slightly different way. I came at it in kind of an angle. Typically, and I assume Yelm would be the same, that cities desire a high level of connectivity of their subdivision roads, so that each subdivision is not an enclave, it's part of a larger community. And for public safety and other reasons, there's good traffic flow, that one subdivision flows into the next subdivision, and streets are common streets rather than individual ones. I'm just curious as to whether that's a policy that Yelm generally applies, and to what extent it's thought about that policy as it lays out the streets for this project. And is it doing so? Is it comfortable with how this project lays relative to its adjoining properties, so that it is providing good connectivity?
Yes, I do see your point there. Yeah, to the east is when I look at it, that is fully all public services. Maybe I could see them providing that little bit of entrance there that looks like it could expand, just because there is a hammerhead up there. And I know for fire access, we do ask that there is a way for those fire trucks to turn around, which is why you do see some of that loop there, I'm sure. So that could be one of the potential reasons that's there.
Okay. Another traffic issue, obviously there's concern by residents along Woodland Court cul-de-sac as to the use of their road for this project. And in reviewing the traffic impact analysis, it mentions the number of intended users, or the peak use, AM and PM. But it doesn't really mention at all the expected use of Woodland Court. In fact, there's no mention. It acknowledges a second connection to Woodland Court, but nowhere in the analysis is there a discussion of how many vehicles might use Woodland Court, especially during peak AM and PM periods. I'm curious whether you have an idea, whether there's been any discussion, or you have a general sense of to the extent to which this subdivision might rely upon that secondary road through Woodland Court, because the traffic impact analysis bases its considerations entirely on everybody using Road C. And so there's no reference to the use of Woodland Court for determining impacts. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on the likely impacts to that road.
The impacts to that road, I feel wouldn't be too heavy, but I can't say specifically. I'm not a traffic engineer. I am the city planner. I would rather not put myself in that hole there. I do feel like if that is something you would like to see, you know, I think that would be a great question for Evan and Scott and his team on what you would like there, because in our eyes, we would see more of that Road C being used, but I do understand the concern.
And then I sort of asked these questions in a reverse order. I'm just wondering about if I'm a resident of Woodland Court, am I concerned merely about some of the northernmost residences in this subdivision, or am I perhaps facing further expansion further east? Again, with Road A having the potential to connect further east, is this a door being opened to a larger road system that relies upon Woodland Court as its beginning point? Now, you've already testified that, again, to the east is city property. The chances of its development are remote. But do you have any, if that concern existed, what might be your response?
If that concern had existed, I think we probably would have required them to, you know, obviously that stub is great, but required them to show with a traffic report as well the effects of what that could cause. We don't usually, as a city, like to link subdivision after subdivision. We do actually require any more than 25 units be connected to an arterial or collector in 2 different ways. So that is a requirement that we would look for specifically in those site plans. So with this one, we weren't overly concerned on that matter.
Okay, understood. One last question about the interaction between Woodland Court cul-de-sac and Road A. Do you envision any transition between the two, such as a calming device or anything else, or are you just envisioning continuous through from one into the other?
So I feel like that would come up more with the civil plan review than it would as much the planning review. We do require stuff like landscaping and stormwater that be submitted during that civil review process. Okay,
so if I can paraphrase, and sometimes that's a dangerous thing, but you tell me if I'm tracking. Well, that may be a consideration. It's a rather than imposing something now. It's better to think about it during the engineering phase, during permitting review. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if it's something that you're looking for, if it's like a safety concern, or if it's like landscaping or like barriers, that's going to be something that you're probably going to see more in that civil phase.
Okay, so at this point, there's nothing about this project where you feel that any sort of additional calming devices should be imposed as conditions of project approval?
I would have to look through our code a little bit more on that one. Personally, when we had went through it, we did go through with our code and check for these items. I don't really see there being something as like needing to be on the planning side of that. Again, I think that's more of a civil question that our engineer may require them to have based on his specifications for design standards.
No, I understand your response. It does make sense. So, okay. I do not have any other questions, Ms. Williams. I appreciate your responses to my questioning. we'll turn that, and you had indicated earlier that you would be the presentation for the city. So am I assuming correctly that there will be no other city staff testifying?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. So we'll turn then to the applicant, and Mr. Mann, whether will that be you, or would I anticipate that from coming from other staff? Tell me how you wish to proceed.
Yeah, it'll be myself primarily, and I've got Scott Call. So I'm the developer. Copper Ridge LLC is the company.
Okay.
And Scott Call is our engineer consultant with AHBL. And so it'll be a combination of the two of us.
So
I'll
let's
lead and then give Scott a chance to explain some of the engineering concepts.
I'm going to do this in a slightly unusual way, in that I'm going to swear you both at the same time and allow you both to be unmuted at the same time, if the system will allow for that, so that you can speak as something of a organized team rather than individual, in the hope that that might improve or allow a more complete single presentation rather than a couple individual presentations. So as to both of you, and Mr. Cole, can you be unmuted there? There we go. Do both of you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep,
I do.
So Mr. Mann, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Sure. First off, if city staff is in possession of any additional public comments that were provided, typically when they're entered into the record, they're also provided
Yes.
to the applicant at the same time. So is there an opportunity for city staff to send any additional comments that were written comments now for our review during public comment?
All comments were submitted in the hearing examiner packet that HBL should have received.
Okay, so all of those are in the packet, just at the tail end there.
Yes, there will be
Okay.
one other one that was received after public notice of the public hearing, but I am willing to send that to you as
That'd
well.
be
That
great.
is a written comment.
Cool, that'd be great.
So
This is
that's
something we
what
typically
Mr. Mann was asking for. And so Ms. Williams, you will be providing that as soon as you can to him?
Yes, correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excellent. So with regard to water rights being a major issue in the city of Yelm, we typically on preliminary plats in the city of Yelm have asked for a condition of approval, essentially stating that the final plat and or building permits are not to be issued until such time that the water rights are perfected. So that's a pretty basic comment that we've used on previous plats in the city of Yelm that has allowed the development or the preliminary plat to proceed, again, with the understanding that water rights are pending and that they will. So we ask that if there is a concern about, being able to say, yes, this meets water requirements or water needs, that condition be used. I believe, Sarah, you should have access to that through other plats that we've done. If the hearing examiner would like to see a copy of a condition.
So Mr. Mann, let me slow you down for a second. And to try to determine what things may be simply agreed upon by the parties in advance. So Ms. Williams, you've heard Mr. Mann's explanation of a desired condition, additional condition of plat approval, one actually that appears favorable to the city, and that has been opposed and that has been required in other plats. At this time, do you know if you would have objection or would concur with that additional condition? Or do you need to see something? Where might the city be with respect to that additional condition?
With that one, with me being a fairly new planner, less than a year, that is something that I do not personally have experience with, nor do some of our planning staff have experience with. Our public services director would be the one that would have the most experience with that, working with Evan Mann and water rights specifically. I would need to consult with him prior to agreeing or disagreeing to this. But I do know, like I had mentioned, water rights are not assured until that building permit issuance.
So let me just handle it this way then. It may be a matter of concurrent suggestion or that the parties are in total agreement with, but we need to find out. And so I'll invite the parties to have a conversation about that following the hearing to determine if there is a jointly proposed additional condition of project approval, and perhaps send that to me in a written format so that I can, if I approve the project, that I can simply add that condition to the others that I might impose. So sure, I'll ask the parties following the hearing to have a conversation with respect to that issue and determine if there is a jointly proposed additional condition with respect to water rights.
Thank you.
Again,
Go ahead, Mr. Mann.
Only bring that up because it's incumbent on the applicant to prove that they meet state requirements for water, sewer, public utilities, things like that. So
It's a point very well taken. I appreciate you having brought it up.
just want to make sure that if and I believe Sarah testified to that effect, but want to make sure that we have something in there that says water is available. So secondly, the storm plans that you requested are actually found on sheet C 4.1. It shows an underground infiltration trench.
You're breaking up a little bit. You said C, and then I didn't hear beyond that.
Sorry about that. In the plan set, it's found in sheet C 4.1. It shows the concept storm plan, which would show all of
It appears only the cover sheet site plan exhibit 3 was in the staff report. As far as I can tell, I think the rest of the civil sheets that were included with the application are not.
Right. I do not think I have sheet C4. I have sheets 0, 1, and then I have the large scale map, site map, but it does not seem to include any stormwater. So if there are additional plans, perhaps they can be made available through this or expanded upon in the city's website so that all of the sheets are included. Not all I have currently is the sheet 0, 1, and then the plat map itself. And I don't have any of the other sheets. So
what would the best way be for us to, I have them available. I can email them directly to the hearing examiner or through the city. I think Sarah may.
I would prefer that they go through the city.
Okay.
Thank you for the suggestion. And if they'll be made available to the city to post either as an extension of the exhibit, the current exhibit, or which is exhibit 3, or that they be made an additional exhibit 20 as additional site plan maps. So whichever I'll leave to the city as to which is the more effective approach for making certain that they're all present, because I have not seen them.
Yeah, so yeah, there's 9 sheets in the civil plan set. Scott went to great lengths to prepare them. Love to have you look at them.
Thank you.
So, but when you do sheet C 4.1, it goes into great detail on the proposed stormwater plan.
And in a very quick summary of that, Mr. Mann, how does the system work?
Yeah, so effectively, you've got a conveyance system, gravity conveyance system that collects stormwater from road A, road B, road C, and tract B, and conveys it to the northern half of tract A, where there will be an infiltration trench that's constructed with perf pipe into the ground. So there's treatment facility and infiltration facility there in tract A that would satisfy the requirements of DOE stormwater requirements and the city of Yelm stormwater requirements.
Okay, great.
There's also a small storm facility within Road C, an infiltration facility for area that cannot drain back to the rest of the plat stuff.
That's the second of the 2 retention facilities, the narrow one.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, all right.
And if I could real quick clarify, I know we were talking about public and private roads. Is my understanding from the coordination with the city that road C, B, and A are all public roads.
Correct.
Tract B is a private road, and private roads can serve up to 9 homes. And so that is a private road that's required to be in a tract or easement per the city standards.
Okay.
So all roads except for the tract B are proposed to be public.
Correct.
Okay,
And then
that's
the
pretty
roads,
significantly different. Yeah.
Road C extension, it was an allowed deviation to maintain the required access to an arterial due to the limited right of way, since we don't own the properties adjacent. But if the neighbor to the south develops, that road set up so that right of way would become a full right of way. and meet city standards.
Okay, so Mr. Call, you've anticipated that, or you're responding to the question I asked of staff earlier that, so Road C actually, if development were proposed, would be capable, even though it's below normal standards, it would still be capable of extending to provide further public service then?
Well, yeah, correct. Access from the south is available. Plus, if someone developed the property to the south, there would also be a sidewalk added to the south side. So really, the only compromise was, I believe it's the sidewalk and overall right-of-way width is narrowed, but the travel lanes meet all the requirements for safety and lane width and
Okay,
travel.
thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mann, you've been interrupted a number of times. If you recall where you were last in your testimony, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think the most important thing we say is that, we're in concurrence with the city's assessment but just some points of clarification is really what we like to provide here. So the other item, so yes, track C or road C is public, and it's what in other jurisdictions we might call a half street improvement, even though you're really developing like 3/4 plus. So it lacks a sidewalk on the south side just due to the fact that there are no pedestrians accessing the south side of that road. But otherwise, for fire purposes, traffic purposes, and service to the plat, it is, for all intents and purposes, functional and can support the volume. You asked another question about traffic splits and volumes between the communities. So while the traffic assessment does not specifically, give a breakdown of units that would be potentially or trips that would potentially be going on Woodland Court, if I guess what you could say is that the Woodland Court and existing infrastructure are local road access roads, which potentially can serve hundreds of average daily trips and hundreds of peak trips. And so, being that Woodland Court is an existing standard road that currently serves the neighborhood and was intended for extension, we're merely extending as was intended. And while not all 30 average or peak trips are going to go through Woodland Court, any volume of those 30 going through there would be within road standard requirements, right? So we're not going to exceed what the road can sustain with this development. And being that we've provided the main access around Road C, I think it's more than likely that the grand majority of these units and homes will be using Road C to access the plat.
Yeah,
and then
the traffic report indicates that 90% of the traffic will travel to the south, which would lead to 90% of the traffic going down Road C because that's the shortest distance to get down there. But yeah, as Evan pointed out, Woodland Court was always planned to be extended. Their final plat shows the right-of-way extension to our property, so connectivity was always intended and part of that plat development. And so we are providing our connectivity, but also providing that other arterial connection, which the majority of traffic will go to, since the majority of traffic travels south. About 10% of the traffic would go north.
I have to leave it to my engineer to catch the details. And then, so obviously we're showing 2 road connections to the east. Well, whether they're going to be used or not, it's always a kind of the question mark, right? So Road A extends to what is the city's current operations facility. That being said, given land use patterns and land use densities, technically the city's operations center is a low use, and potentially 20 years from now, the city develops a much larger city hall with a much larger facility. And so the connectivity is always something that's desirable for a city. Though that being said, we can't anticipate what would be developed to the east of us here. And so there really isn't a volume that we could point to in a traffic assessment and say, well, we anticipate this much volume, because we don't know what would be developed there or what the connection would be. And so both Road C and Road A, yes, they have the potential to extend, but the analysis of future volumes coming from those extensions is something that's not possible to be provided at this point. So again, just in the terms of working with the city's engineer and looking at how we can lay out this road in a way that provides maximum connectivity for future connections. This is what we worked out. I did hear one public comment about children playing in Woodland Court Southeast cul-de-sac. Good news is we're building an actual play structure facility there on Tract A, and the folks who live on Woodland Court Southeast are more than welcome to come and use that the new play structure facility for small children. And again, any traffic passing through their neighborhood obviously would need to follow any laws of speed and whatnot. So it should.
So, Mr. Mann, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, one of the civil sheets show the additional site improvements. Again, the one I have does not. So one of those shows common area improvements that, and you know which one it might be.
Yeah. So at this time, with regard to the actual play structure that would be proposed, there is no specific detail shown. It is anticipated that would be located on Tract A. So for, what do you call it? Clean, neat, and approximate. That is where the play structure would be. The recreation open space would be provided on Tract A. Some of that would be over the infiltration trench, which is all underground, so there's be grass there. And so those details and the specific play structure that we would propose typically come out during final engineering. But it is proposed over Tract A.
Bouncing around a little bit, and this may be a Mr. Call question rather than you, but in terms of the stormwater, stormwater is basically intended to catch road surface water, not so much house water, right? That each of the houses will have its own stormwater detention in the form of a dry well. And so what we're mostly seeing is assisted design for the streets, is that? And correct. Sidewalks? Okay.
The public right-of-way infrastructure driveways will go to that system, and then the roofs, rear yard area would go to a dry well, so that we recharge as required.
And is that the philosophy generally preferred by the city?
Yeah, that's the requirement to retain the stormwater. So, yep.
Meaning retention of a lot of the individual lot water through dry boxes rather than sending it to the common
Somewhere
systems
else.
as well.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
To recharge their aquifer. Yep.
Okay. Mr. Mann, anything else that you would like to add?
No, not specifically. Again, we did our due diligence with regard to critical areas and critical species, and I believe both reports indicate, well, one indicates that there are no Mazama pocket gophers, and no evidence of that, and then the other indicates that there essentially is no habitat for the bird species that were of concern. And so really tried to make sure we included that information before we came to hearing, as kind of additional. Specifically, the bird concern was brought up by the public, and we wanted to make sure we had that to present to the hearing examiner, so the record was clear on that.
Yes, duly noted.
So I believe, aside from that,
okay. And Mr. Call, then anything that you would have?
No, unless you have any specific questions.
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes then the applicant's presentation. So again, we've heard from city staff, we've heard from the applicant. Now we come to the third phase of the hearing, which is the public comment. Let's stop, take a breath, and see where we are with the opportunity for participation. So Ms. Williams, in the period of time that we've been on record, what seems to have been the status of public opportunity?
I do know that Deidre Smith did have a comment that she wanted to mention earlier. We do have 2 other attendees other than her. So I don't know if you'd like me to unmute her or add her.
I will in just a second. My question was a little bit different. I didn't ask it very well. And that is, are you receiving phone calls, emails, others suggestions that you're having people continue to struggle to gain access?
Currently not anymore. We did have one comment that I had taken care of when you were working with Evan Mann and Scott Cole. I did send them another Zoom link. Anyone who's specifically reaching out and everyone who I know had commented, I did send another Zoom link hoping that would work. Again, I apologize for this inconvenience. I was not in control of this Zoom webinar today.
Well, apologies aren't the concern. It's just making sure that, again, we have a record that we can defend, and that, well, that sounds defensive, a record that is complete and that has provided everyone the same opportunity. So all what you just explained is helpful. I may still come back and decide upon what steps, if any, to make certain that opportunity to participate has been made available. So let's take us then into the public hearing phase. And so it's important to determine those who wish to be heard. So there is a hand raised, I see, by Mr. McCoy, and I do not, Ms. Williams, you may have a fuller list of attendees at this point. Do you have, you mentioned Ms. Deirdre of having wished to testify earlier. Do you have indications from any others that they may wish to testify?
They have not said anything. So if you would like to testify or say something, please comment, and I will promote you to a panelist.
Okay, so I'll leave that for Ms. Williams to monitor while we then begin the process of hearing from those who wish to be heard. So Mr. McCoy, having raised his hand, I assume that's for the opportunity to testify. It may be else, but we'll find out in a second. But we'll begin with Mr. McCoy.
I just wanted to share one thing is that as far as the rest of those plans, apparently only the cover sheet was updated. I did find in the folder the rest of the completed civil plans, and that could be provided for you. So as a man, they don't have.
Okay, so Mr. McCoy, you must be from city staff then?
Correct.
Okay.
He's our civil engineer.
Ah, okay. Sorry that I don't know the players very well. So I'll just ask staff to expand upon Exhibit 3, the list of the civil sheets for this to include the entire set, just for completeness. So coming back then to those who may wish to be heard, again, it was mentioned that Ms. Deirdre, it's actually Ms. Smith. So Ms. Smith, if you can be unmuted, you have been. Do you wish to testify?
Yes, I would like to.
Okay. How do I pronounce your first name?
It's pronounced Deidre.
Deidre. I apologize if I was mashing it up a little bit. I'm sorry about that. And again, it's your first name, not your last name. So Ms. Smith, again, apologies for that. First of all, let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you for hearing us today. We are residents on Woodland Court Southeast, and I've submitted many comments to the city in regards to the proposal. So I've never done this before, and I'm not exactly sure how to present. I'm sure.
Let me help you a little bit, perhaps. Again, the more I can help you, the more it may be simpler for you and more effective for me. So we have a mutual interest in making that simple for you. I'll first of all point out that I have reviewed all of your prior comments. Not that that means that you can't repeat them, but just understand that I have reviewed all public comment carefully in advance of the hearing. So I am aware of the things you have said in the past, just so that you understand that. Again, this is a fact-finding process in which I am to rule on facts that are important with respect to the city's regulations for subdivisions. So those things that you may feel impact the project's compliance with regulations or failure to comply, or the sorts of things, or the project's, fitting in with its surroundings, anything in which you think is a factual issue that may bear upon the appropriateness of the subdivision is fair testimony. I don't know if that has helped you or not, but if with those thoughts in mind, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm glad to hear that you have read my comments. My husband and I did quite a bit of research, and we tried to be as thorough as possible in presenting facts as well as our perspective on the development. Based on what we researched, the amount of homes that they would like to build in this development seem to be excessive. The citizens of Yelm, this is a small community, a rural community, and the neighborhood that we live in, Woodland Court, as well as the other court, 95th, comprised about the same amount of acreage as the proposed development, and our neighborhood is approximately 20 homes. And none of the homes in our current neighborhood have extremely large yards, good size residential homes. And so the proposal of adding 30 homes to a similar size plot of less than 5 acres seems to be crowding together a lot of people into a small space, as well as impacting the rural quality of life that is enjoyed by the existing residents in our neighborhood. And based on the application and the information that was provided by the developer, we do not feel that the studies that they did or what they presented are really accurate of how we will be impacted by residents of 30 homes. If you have 30 homes added to less than 5 acres, we'll just assume that there are at least 2 working adults per household. Each person having their own car would equal at least 60 cars in this new neighborhood, and coming and going 2 times a day, 60 trips, not 30. While let me look at my map. While the drive on Road C is intended as an entry exit for the new residents, it doesn't go through an existing neighborhood and wouldn't impact those residents. But let's just say if you split it in half, 30 cars coming and going from Road A through Woodland Court, that would greatly impact our neighborhood. I'm not sure if you've been down this street and had a chance to view our neighborhood for yourself in person, but on Woodland Court, we back out of our driveways. And so not just that neighbors' children, play and cross the street throughout the day, but when we do come and go from our own homes, our driveways are made in such a way that we have to back out, and adding more traffic coming and going to this small, currently quiet neighborhood would negatively impact safety as well as traffic and noise. So I just wanted for that to be noted. It's hard to see from the preliminary plat map that was presented. In addition to that concern, the bird study that was performed, as a biologist, it's my scientific opinion that this bird study was not performed in a way that truly presents an accurate perspective of what's behind us in this 4.89 acre plat. In order to get a representative sampling of what birds and wildlife are in that area, you have to perform a study that is for a time period of more than 1 day, and also to use wildlife cameras rather than a person walking around, because as we know, birds and other wildlife will hide when they see people. So what was observed and what was photographed are most likely not representative of the wildlife and birds that truly do exist back in that area. I, as well as other neighbors, have seen a lot of different kinds of birds, including owls, that use those very large pine trees. I've done bird studies myself, and in those cases, we used what's called mist netting, where birds will actually fly and get caught in the mist netting, where they can be caught, identified as to what species they are, and photographed. The photographs that were presented by, I believe it was EnviroVector, several of the photographs that describe what species are on those photographs. The species are not evident. We see pictures of trees from far away, or kind of not good photographs of other species. Because of the rural style of living in this town, we need to continue to maintain wildlife corridors for birds and wildlife. And by crowding 30 homes onto 5 acres would require that they cut down every single tree in that area, which would remove the wildlife corridors that are currently used by the existing species. And my last point in regards to the bird study is that they did their documenting in December, which is in the dead of winter. If you want to get a good picture of the bird species and the amount of birds that use this property, you would want to use it during nesting and breeding season, which is right now in the springtime. So wintertime is not an ideal time to do a bird study.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Anything else?
Yes. The developer said that they would replace trees at a 1-to-1 ratio, but they did not confirm that the types of trees that they would remove would be replaced with a tree of a like species. And we feel that this is important to preserve that aesthetic for this town and for these residents. Something else that I'd like to add to this discussion is that on Crystal Springs Road, this is not the only development that is being proposed or that is under construction currently. Although Woodland Court was intended ultimately to be a street leading to another neighborhood, this is still a small town, and Crystal Springs Road is only a 2-lane road. Although the developer says that their plans are within the standards set forth by the city of Yelm, we have to think about all of the other cars that will be added to this road, and the infrastructure that we currently have cannot support the addition of hundreds of new vehicles. We're just not set up for that currently. So utilizing the maximum density that the city allows to build these homes is not ideal. It's not ideal for future residents, and it's certainly not ideal for the current residents here. We already have a pretty bad traffic problem in Yelm. Yelm Avenue is extremely congested in morning and evening for rush hour traffic. Just down the road from us is a new middle school, and around 2:30 to 3 o'clock every day during school, it's nearly impossible to get through that area due to the traffic. Part of the developer's proposal was suggesting that ultimately the 510 loop will be constructed, which should alleviate traffic, but we can't make assumptions about something that doesn't exist. So therefore, the construction of high density homes in this neighborhood and the traffic would not be alleviated by something that may or may not happen. The 510 loop has been in discussion for many years, and yet nothing has been built yet. I had one last comment. It was kind of a question as well, because when you all were speaking earlier, you were talking about a calming device, and I'm assuming that's a speed bump, but I just wanted to clarify that and ask if that is one measure to be used for safety on Woodland Court.
When I refer to calming device, it's a category of potential actions, speed bumps being one, but certainly not the only. So, and again, consists of constricted points. It can consist of speed reducers. It can be a number of things. I didn't have any particular one in mind when I was asking about generically whether calming devices were being thought about.
Okay, thank you. I believe that that is something that would be essential to preserving safety and mitigating traffic and cars if they were to go through Woodland Court.
Since I can't see you, Ms. Smith, I don't know when you may be complete, so I don't want to be rude in any way. You let me know when you are complete in your testimony.
I believe I've touched on the major points, knowing that you've already read my written comments. I would just like to thank you for hearing us and to consider not just the growth of Yelm, but also the residents that will be impacted by the continuing development. And that completes my comments.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Williams, do you appear to have others who are interested in testifying?
Yes, there is one other person. That would be Mary Posey. She was the next person. I will allow her to talk now.
Great. So, Ms. Posey, you're showing, there we go. You are now unmuted. I'll have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead.
I am in perfect agreement with Ms. Smith. I did see her written comments, and I live just down the street from her on 92nd Way, and just off of Crystal Springs, and noting that there is a lot of construction going on around the city. Caused me concern.
I'm lose,
for
Ms. Posey.
wildlife, of course.
Ms. Posey, can you hear
I'm
me?
sorry.
I'm losing you. I'm sorry.
I can hear you just fine.
Great.
Okay.
Your bandwidth seems to be under strain. And so at times you start to fade out to the point where I cannot hear you, or it becomes unintelligible. And so I don't know if there's anything we can do about that other than if you want to retreat a sentence or two
Okay.
and try again, and I'll just do as good a job as I can of listening.
Okay, I will hold the speaker a little closer. Does that microphone, does it make it better?
It may, it seems to a little.
Okay. So I was saying before that I live just down the street from Ms. Smith on 92nd Way, and have been noticing more community growth around Yelm. And I do grow concerned about the wildlife because we do see large animals like the deer. We've seen female, not necessarily the buck, but we also see larger animals like fox or you know, yes, they're small, but possums and things like that that do come into the neighborhood. And my concern is, where are they going to go if we continue to develop in Yelm, as so many of the big cities have done? And there's nothing for them to eat because all we have is concrete and asphalt going around our neighborhoods. And just because there's a plot of land that doesn't have a whole lot on it, doesn't mean that we need to put houses on top of that land. I've been a part of this particular region, grew up here in Puyallup, and we moved over into the Yelm area because it was small. It was a small town, but it has grown significantly in the 15 years since we have lived here. And there's just so much overgrowth to me in our small area. I am afraid of more crime going on. I'm afraid of, as we've read and we've spoken before, about more traffic. We've got a lot of little kids that are growing up around us, and as the community grows, the lesser compassion of the younger drivers going up and down our street extremely fast. If you haven't, been around our neighborhood, there are people going, I mean, yeah, I don't have a way to scan them, but we know that they're not going 25 miles an hour and going extremely fast. And I mean, we had an incident just a couple of days ago where we were driving. Thankfully, we had enough time to stop. A ball had gone into the street, and a teenage boy was going to follow after it. Thankfully, he didn't follow too closely. But here we are with more traffic coming in and out of our neighborhood. As Ms. Smith said, 60 vehicles at least, coming and going. And that doesn't mean the extra trips to the grocery store or another store here in town to go pick up something. Yes, twice a day, maybe 4 or 5 times a day, there's traffic going. Even on my small street, where we have 41 lots in our HOA, that there are plenty of cars coming and going all day long. So lots of stay-at-home moms or even stay-at-home dads, whatever the case may be. So noise pollution of more cars, of more families, of that going on, I just, even though I don't live right there in the same area as Ms. Smith does, I'm still impacted by what does go around, because I am within walking distance from her neighborhood. And so, I just hate to see our small town grow into this big conglomerate, and noise pollution, more crime, We've seen a whole lot more crime since we've lived here in the last 15 years. And where there's people, there's going to be crime. So I'm really afraid of what is going on. I have a granddaughter that we watch very carefully just to make sure she's going to be safe when we're out and about. And so, you know, those are my biggest things. I mean, I can see her point of view being right there where a new street is going to come in, but with us living in the same vicinity, I know that, you know, I'm repeating myself over and over again. And of course, you know, we repeat what our statements say. But I also do know that where there is more housing.
Ms. Posey, I've lost you at this point.
New with all the new housing going in, my taxes have taken an extreme hike. And so putting in another 30 lots of homes is going to make my taxes to go even higher. So I'm not in favor of it, of course. I know this isn't a voting thing, but I'm not in favor of it. I would really like to not see this new construction close to me. I don't like seeing all the other ones come up around either, because it's the same thing. Where's the wildlife going to go? So I think I've pretty much said what I needed to say. I don't have a lot of, you know, like Ms. Smith has a lot of, with her background as a biologist and those kinds of things. But I do really care about the wildlife. I care about that they are taken care of, because there's too many strips of land being taken out. All the trees are gone. And where are they to hide? Where are they supposed to go? So we do need to keep, you know, keep them, you know, keep them in our viewpoint. Yes, this might look like it's there's a lot of plain area where there's, you know, not a lot of trees or whatever, but does that mean that we need to take up what's there and get rid of it and put in a crowded, as I'm looking at the map, it's like, my goodness, putting these people in these lots just crammed in here, just so a developer can make a lot of money on of it. You know, I'm not for it. And so I hope that my voice will be heard. I hope that those who've written will be heard. I hope the city will take us into account, even though we're a small clutch of people that have decided to speak for our city. I hope that those few of us will make an impact, maybe even in future growth, growing somewhere else in Yonge. And I am finished. Thank you.
Thank you. So Ms. Williams, do you have any other indicators of those wishing to testify?
There is someone trying to log in with the new link, and apparently it is not working from them. So I would like to try to occasionally make this work if I can, or somehow. Her name is Savannah Norija. Her last name is spelled Noriega. I do not have her direct email link to be able to send this to her. So I don't know if Daedra would possibly have it. It was Daedra's comment. If she has this, I would love to.
Well, okay, that's not quite good enough. I don't want to have someone paraphrase someone else's comments or indirectly provide them. The person has the right to present them in some sort of direct way. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be in testimony today, but there needs to be a certainty that that person's wishes are expressed wishes are made clear. So I'm going to let me just ask for the record, is there anyone else present currently who wishes to be heard, who has not been provided the opportunity? that doesn't apply to the city or the applicant, by the way. I'll come back to both in a moment. So the record should reflect that there are no others currently who wish to be heard, but it should also reflect that there is at least one other individual who has attempted to be heard, but has struggled because of the city's challenges today. So I'm going to return to the city first for any additional response it may have to the presentation, either by the applicant or by the public. Ms. Williams, do you have any additional responses you wish to make, having heard from both the applicant and the public?
I do have a response to you, Mark. We will be sending out that information for the site plan and the additional comment, which would be Exhibit 19 here shortly. As soon as this is over, we will send that out immediately. Currently, the city would like to hear any other comments that would like to be made regarding this, and I think the city would be favorable to however you see fit to achieve those comments.
Thank you. And Mr. Mann, having heard the public comment, anything that you wish to add as a response at this time?
Yeah, and just a few clarifications. So with regard to the bird, let's see, it's the endangered and threatened bird survey that was done. So when a biologist goes out and does one of these surveys, it's a pretty standard survey that's done, follows a lot of the Department of Fish and Wildlife standards. In this particular case, this is a trained biologist who went out to do a specific survey. And while it is a point in time assessment, the other thing that they're looking for in those moments is for habitat that would support those endangered species. And as you'll find in the survey that was done, this property does not have any habitat that would support the 3 endangered species that are listed. So that's the listed species. So just to clarify that, while it was a point in time assessment, it followed all standards and determined that there was none present and no habitat present. And you'll be able to see that in the report. With regard to landscaping and revegetation, so we typically follow a city's guidelines when it comes to landscaping, and those guidelines typically push towards native species. So we're open to replant native species per city guidelines, and there are buffering requirements and street tree requirements, and so there will be a significant replanting effort on this site for trees. With regard to the trips and traffic, I'd like to go back to that. So Crystal Springs Road is an arterial that will support and was found to be sufficient to support the trips that we're proposing. Additionally, we will be paying a traffic impact fee to the city to mitigate for any trips that we are generating on that surface. So certainly not neglecting our impact, but actually mitigating it through both traffic impact fees and through improvements on our site. Based on the study, one of the items that was discussed was the 510 loop. The traffic study speaks to the 510 loop only in one place, and it basically says that the current patterns as they exist are being addressed, but that those patterns can shift once the 510 loop is complete. So whenever that happens, we don't know, but those traffic patterns could potentially shift when the 510 loop is complete. And that's really all that was said. It wasn't that somehow we were relying on the 510 loop our assessment. So it's more just that this is the current pattern. When that comes through, there may be a different pattern. But again, 10% of the trips being through the existing community. For context, that's 3 peak hour trips and 30 average daily trips. So it's not a significant volume that we would be sending through the existing community, and their roads can support those. With regard to traffic calming, when reviewing the plans, the traffic or the road plans, so C 0.1 would show it. The intersection of Road A and Road B actually includes what is typically called a bump out or a chicane. So a narrowing of the road in those locations to get people to slow down prior to proceeding. So the proximity to Woodland Court And given the curvature of Woodland Court and the change there, really the traffic speeds that can be achieved in this area are minimal at best. It's a 10 to 15 mile an hour area at best. So there are traffic calming features already in the design. Again, both one being just the curvature of the road, and two being the chicanes or bump outs. So I think there are things incorporated in the design, and if any further traffic calming needs are to be addressed, we can review during final engineering with the city staff to see if there's a need for those. I think that was kind of the handful of comments that I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mann. So that concludes the testimony today. There is, again, an obvious desire by at least one other individual to be heard, and that cannot happen today. So we'll have to address that and the potential for there having been others who aren't as obvious as the one who was making the effort and failed. So what I'm going to do is open, I understand that this video will be posted as part of the city's website. And if the city will give notice of that fact and give notice on its site of the opportunity to provide additional written comment through this week. So today is Tuesday, so additional written comment through the end of this week. So 5 o'clock Friday would be the deadline for additional public comment in the form of a written version, that is email or some written form of comment, as we will not be returning to a televised portion, but to provide the opportunity for additional comment in that format. But that, of course, creates the possibility that either the city or the applicant may want to respond to that additional comment. And so there needs to be that availability as well. And so I assume the parties want to keep on a schedule. And so I will ask for any additional response from the city or the applicant to that comment by the following Tuesday. And so that is the 15th. So additional public comment by this Friday, the 12th at 5 o'clock, and any responsive comments from the city or the applicant to that comment by Tuesday, the 15th at 5 o'clock. And as part of that, again, returning to Mr. Mann's suggestion of additional condition relative to water rights, I'll ask the parties to converse in the meantime about that and to determine if there is a common agreement on an additional proposed condition, and if so, submit that to me for my consideration. Are there any other matters, or do any parties have any questions about what I've just directed?
I think.
Well, it's been an interesting day, and I appreciate everyone having borne through some technical challenges. We have done as best we can in regard to those, and fortunately, the majority of people who wish to be heard have had that opportunity and to have heard others testify. I'm thankful for that. I'm also thankful that for this record to be available, so that those who might have wanted to participate have a full understanding of what did occur. And so, and finally, that we're giving that last opportunity for anyone who does still wish to be heard, while at the same time moving this along at a steady pace, not to rush it, but just to make certain that there is in fact due process, that is the timely consideration of the application. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their assistance today, their patience, and their participation. All of the points have been made well made and are articulate. I want to thank everybody for having taken the time to prepare their thoughts in advance, including the public who have spoken eloquently. And I do understand the points. And yes, I have reviewed all prior materials and will re-review them before I make my final decision. Once I have received all the final paperwork and the final deadlines have been met, I am under a fairly tight time frame under the city's regulations for reducing my decision to writing. I always honor that, and I will have that decision as quickly as I can once all materials have been received. Again, I want to thank everybody for their help today. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.